You've tuned into The Brew, the talk show that explores queer spirituality, social issues, and pagan culture with me, your host, Dr. John Michael Salvato. Hey, good evening, everybody. This is Dr. John Michael Salvato, and welcome to The Brew, a weekly talk show that is focused on queer pagan spirituality and culture. As I said, here comes, never fails when we do this show, no matter what time we do it, that an ambulance or police car has to go by in the beginning. We are in the midst of, or toward the end, actually, of a Mercury retrograde. And unfortunately, what that means for us is that our guests constantly have issues trying to get in during Mercury retrograde, it seems. Those of you who were here last week saw that our guest was not able to get in. And apparently the same thing has happened, unfortunately, tonight. But we want to let you guys know that this was a terrific guest. So I am going to stick around for a couple of minutes, and hopefully they'll be able to log in before long. So as I said, this is a program that by definition is geared toward those who dance to the beat of a different drum, whether you're a part of the LGBT community, one of its allies, or somebody who just has some sort of affinity or connection to our community. The guests on the show may or may not identify as LGBT or LGBTQ. And we welcome everybody to comment, everybody that's watching the program, everybody that is part of the podcast, to comment and ask questions and really participate, because really and truly, guys, this is as much your program as it is mine. And the program really benefits from your input. And that means that we would love to hear from you in the comments down below or by email if you're listening to our podcast on iTunes or Spotify. So if you're watching the live, and I've got some really good news for you. I just see that in the green room, our guest has just been able to log in. And so we will bring them into the conversation in just a minute. So for those of you who are watching live or you're watching on the replay, go ahead and do me a favor right now while we're getting things set up. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from. And if you're watching on the replay, go ahead and play along. We'd love to know where you're watching on the replay from as well. And you know, throughout the program, we may ask you to comment, and we're trying out a new time for the program this week and next week. And so we realize some folks might be having some challenges converting the time zones. And I know that our friends that watch on the other side of the pond, they are probably going to have to catch the replay. But your comments and questions are welcome. If you happen to be watching or listening to this on iTunes, on the podcast, or on Spotify, you can go ahead and email us. And email us your questions. Those can be sent to John Michael at inneralchemy.online. And let's go ahead and dive in. I think we've got some folks tuning in right now. Tonight's guest is somebody that I've had the privilege of knowing and considered part of my tribe for an incredible 34 years. And I had to actually get out the calculator to do the math. Because my fiance wasn't here to do it for me. Some of you guys might remember him and his partner on their first appearance when our show was in season 1 a couple years ago, as they were here talking about their new ventures. And so tonight we're really thrilled to have him back. And Paul Anthony is a skillful metaphysician that I know you guys are going to really enjoy hearing from. He's an energy healer, a psychic medium and mystic, whose journey has taken him really across the gamut, as you're going to hear in a few minutes, always having a profound impact on the people around him. He's a gifted artist and award-winning hairdresser, hailing from Lodi, New Jersey, the second best place in New Jersey to get a pizza. And he now lives in South Florida, where he can be found teasing some of the most incredible hurricane-proof, wind-defying, big-ass hair you've ever seen. So let's go ahead and drop a welcome comment in the comments for my brother as I bring him into the stream. Paul, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you perfect.
Okay. Well, that's I don't know if that's a good thing after talking about that hurricane-proof hair, but welcome to the show. And I saw as you were in the green room, I saw Robert there for a second, so please welcome him as well. And I know that quite a number of folks tonight were messaging me right before the show. They were having trouble getting in. So I know a lot of people are going to be watching this on the rebroadcast and probably jumping on in the middle of this. So we might get bombarded with some questions then. And as Mercury retrograde would have it, I can't log into Facebook to see the questions that I sent you that I said I wanted to cover tonight. So I may or may not cover all of them. I think that they pretty much follow a kind of a standard way. Hey there, Robert. We see you there.
Hello there, John Michael, my brother. How are you?
Good, good. You guys might remember Robert from a few shows ago, about a month or two ago, as he was here talking about his work. But Paulie, let's go ahead and dive in and tell us a little bit about your spiritual journey, how it began, when it began, and what that was like for you.
How much time do we have?
We could talk. We could go as long as you want to go.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it, my friend, and it's good to see you. It's good to be live with you. Let's go back to when it first started. I was 13 years old and playing cards with my friends, as kids do. You know, we sit and we play all kinds of stupid games. And I'm watching the cards on the table change from clubs to work and travel, hearts turning to love and relationships, diamonds turning into money and finances, spades turning into illness and death. And I'm like, what is going on here? Now at 13, you don't know what's going on, especially if it's your first encounter. And who do you talk to? You don't go to your parents, that's for sure. And you can't discuss it with your friends because they'll think you're crazy. So you keep it to yourself and you live with this, and you wonder, okay, is something wrong with me? What's going on here? Why am I seeing this when it doesn't look normal? And so I put it on the side and I left it alone, and I pondered it, of course, for days on end, but eventually it went away. Coming to the age of 15, I had a close female friend who lived in the next town over from where I lived, so I would ride my bike to her house. And we would hang out and play cards and whatever. And she had a sister that was 8 years older than her. And she used to read tarot cards. And I thought it was cool. That was back in the day when we had tarot cards. We had Ouija boards and all that kind of cool stuff that kids played with. So she says, how would you like to have a seance? And I thought, ooh, spooky. That's really cool. That kind of stuff. Alfred Hitchcock, that kind of crazy stuff. So I said, sure. So I went to her house and we went to her basement. It was myself, her, my friend, and another girl was sitting there. And she turned on the light. She had a candle on the table. And we held hands and we closed our eyes. And she did a little ritual to bring in whatever spirit was, willing to come into the room. And I think she expected the spirit to come through her. Suddenly, a cold breeze came across the floor, and I could feel my feet got ice cold. And then it sounded like somebody slammed a door. And I look at this wall, white wall that was facing me, and I see a woman about 5'4" with blonde hair. The back of it was pulled up in a powder blue dress. And she's standing next to a guy that's about 5'9", 5'10", in a police uniform. And their arms are wailing all over and they're having this argument. Suddenly it disappears. A crash occurs and they all release their hands. Then they jump up from the table. And I'm looking at the wall and I no longer see the images, but I see initials M-E. And I'm saying to myself, what is me? What does that mean? So she says later on, what did anybody feel? I says, no, you need to know what I saw. and I explained to them what I had seen and the initials that were left for me to see. And she said, well, my grandmother was buried in a powder blue dress. She had blonde hair and she always wore it up. And her son died on duty. He was a policeman. And they lived together and they always argued. And her name was Mary Ezzo. Now, that was like freaky for me because that was the first time I had ever actually seen a spirit and could describe what they looked like. So luckily I had her as a friend that I can bounce stuff off of, when different situations occurred, like little promptings, you get little messages, you get these feelings or sensations of maybe there's a spirit there or they're trying to tell me something. So that was a good thing I had her. I had nobody else, of course, but had her. And that was at the age of 15. At the age of 16, now they're obviously doing things to prepare me for something that I have no clue what's in store. And I'm coming from an Italian Catholic background, so you don't tell Italian Catholics these things because they think you're possessed by demons, and you're going to hell, and that's the end of it. So you don't talk to your family.
Was this the first time that you had any of those kind of supernatural or paranormal experiences?
That was my first experience. Yeah, that was my first one, and it was.
So go ahead. I didn't want to interrupt you.
How do you digest this stuff? How do you make right with it? You think you're crazy? I mean, but it all fell into sequence. So I left it where it was, and at the age of 16. I go to bed, I fall asleep, and the next thing I feel is a sensation as though I am separating from my body. I'm absolutely weightless. And suddenly I look down, I'm way up at the ceiling, or what I thought was my ceiling, and I'm watching myself sleep. And it was like a very cool place to be because I was weightless. There was no sound. It was really kind of cool until the fear set in. And once the fear set in, I snapped right back into my body and I woke up and I went like, oh my God, what is happening here? So what do you tell? But I told my one friend that was the card reader and she understood. She said she's starting to have some out-of-body experiences and nothing to be frightened of because it can't harm you. Because that's what we're afraid of, that we're going to be harmed. And I felt safe. At the age of 19, Robert said to me one day, can you do me a favor, read my cards? I said, yeah, sure, I could try. So I put the spread of cards out on the table and I read his cards. And when I was done, he looked at me and said, don't ever do that again. Because there was too much stuff there. And we had just met and there's too many things that I knew. So he said, I'll never do it again. So I left it, I put it on the back burner and I left it alone through my 20s. I didn't really investigate anything. I didn't try to rekindle any of those old, feelings or experiences. I just left them alone. But when I reached my early 30s, they kept prompting me, giving me suggestions or feelings or thoughts about people, or if I was in a room, I would get a sensation about somebody's back problem or tell her to go check her tires, things like this. And I realized that I guess they really need us, on this side of the conscious plane in order to get the messages across to the people that are here. So I made an agreement. I said, I will do it. And I will pass along any messages that you feel is necessary for their highest good. And they started to work with me really slowly. And I started to get all of these images. And so I would jot stuff down. I kept a pad next to my bed because in dreams you get a lot of information as well. And so I always tell people today, if you're intuitive or you're sensitive, keep a pad next to your bed and just jot things down and don't read them. Just leave them there and wait for a couple of days. Then take them and read them and you'll see it'll put a little story together because it comes in bits and pieces, okay? So I'm in my 30s, and I'm in the bank. This is a great story. I love this story. I'm in the bank. I'm waiting in line to make a deposit. Now I've got like 6 people ahead of me and like 4 people behind me. And I hear, "Step out of the line." I ignored it. I thought it was somebody saying that to somebody behind me. And I hear a little stronger, "Step out of the line." So I said, "No." Now the guy in front of me looks at me like, "Oh, this guy's nuts." And I hear the third time, "Step out of the line." And I said, "Okay." They're still looking at me like I'm crazy. "Write this down." I said, "Where am I going to write it?" So they directed me to a table where they had deposit slips. And I said, slow down, you're talking too fast." And they're giving me all this information. And I write it down, I put it in my pocket, I get back in line, I make my deposit, I get in my car, and I now take it out to read it. And it's an entire poem, which I am not a poem writer, from my angel, as I call it, or as it called itself, as my guardian, and gave me the whole message and description of itself through a poem. So that was like, okay, well, now we're connected here. Now we're really going for it, So then I started to take some classes, and I started to develop some more skills and get past that fear point, because that was my biggest obstacle, was always my fear point. Am I going to tell somebody that something that's not true, or am I going to put somebody mentally in jeopardy? Or because when you say things to people from a psychic perspective, they really, really believe you and trust you. Okay, so that was my big obstacle until they said to me, "Just get out of the way. That's all you need to do. Just get out of the way and say what we tell you to say." It's not going to make sense because it can't make sense to you because you don't know it. So I would have to battle with myself.
So let me ask you something. Part of your description on your Facebook group, and we'll be sure for the folks that are watching to go ahead and put that in the comments after the show, or if Robert is watching the show simulcast, he can go ahead and put it in the comments as well. But in your description, you say also that you're a mystic. Now, to different people, that means different things, and I have some strong senses about what that means for you because of knowing you. But why don't you share with the viewers what that means for you and how that began to manifest? Because it sounds like we're looking at those years of like the late 30s and early 40s when I know some of the stuff that was starting to come into play.
Well, being a mystic has a lot of different, meanings to a lot of different people. To me, being a mystic is to be able to tune in or channel information that comes from the other side. It is a source for us to connect to when we're willing to do so, because the only thing that resides in that mystic world is truth. Okay, so if we get out of the way and we take our intelligence and our intellect out of it, and we only give forth the information that's given, it's always from truth, right? And it only comes from love, because that's all that's on that side anyway. Is pure love. So I feel very honored that they actually chose me, as many others, to carry forth the messages that they want to get across. See, we need them to get the message through, and they need us for us to get the message through. So it's like a dual relationship here. It's a perfect relationship.
And it's a relationship built on trust and love. So it really is that.
And that's what I open all my sessions with at all times. That the information should only come from truth and love, which blocks out any negativity, any misconceptions, And it puts us into that truth space so that we can portray and give the person exactly what they need to hear.
Gets the ego out of the way. And
we don't, because we don't have time and room for ego.
Yeah.
It only makes everything a mess.
Now in my experience of some of your gifts, your mysticism and that connection with the other side also expands to Robert's right on the same page. I was just going to say it also expands to beings or entities or energies, however somebody wants to call them, that are not of this plane. In other words, not people who crossed over, but folks or beings that might be considered extraterrestrial, and beings that might be considered divinity, gods, goddesses, the mother. So I really think people need to hear about that, because for me that was seeing that aspect of you in the days of the order and the days just prior to that really was when I really just got a sense of something big going on, in your life, something really huge unfolding. So tell us a little bit about that, because I think that's a story people need to hear.
Well, I'm going to tell you about something that's recently taking place, and that is that I am now dealing with light beings from another dimension. They're not people that have crossed over. They were never human. I had an experience yesterday during the healing session with the gentleman, and when it happens, you're not in that space. You're not even there. Okay, I'm going through the movements, but I'm not conscious of it, because I'm in a place now where I see 12 beings. Now their energy, their forms, they're not like when I see spirits from the other side, I can see them clearly. I can see their eyebrows, their eyelashes. I can tell you what color hair they have and what they're wearing. These are just energy forms. 7 of them came forward, and they said that they were from the Universal Court, okay, assisting us with our healing work. 5 of them stood behind. They were from the Cosmic Council, they said. And they said that they couldn't help and assist us until this person entered into a neutral zone, okay, which meant that we have to bring that person's energy level, because he runs at a very, very high frequency, physically, energetically, and doesn't know how to relax and calm down and slow down and focus. So they're waiting until we get him, with the help of those 7, to that point before the other 5 can actually come in and do their work. So they're stepping in now and taking my abilities to a whole new level that I've never had before. Now today, during the healing session, I was gone again, and I was standing in an bigger than an auditorium, almost like the size of a stadium, and there was a horseshoe-shaped dark steel table. It had no legs because it was to the floor, and there were 11 of them in the front sitting down and having a conversation amongst themselves about how to approach this client. Now behind them were bleachers of entities. I couldn't recognize any of those, but there were hundreds of them, and they were just there as observers to watch what this group was going to accomplish. So these light beings are definitely from a different dimension. Can they be alien based? Yes, they can. Can they be from another world or another universe? Yeah, I'm sure they are. But they're there to try to help us and make us aware. So I think our awareness is starting to grow, so that we can have a connection with them, so that they can help us, because look, we can't help ourselves. I mean, it's obvious, the state we're in, we can't help ourselves, and we need them. And we need that new dimension of energy because the frequencies here are getting stronger. So we need them to match that strength. So I think that's why they're starting to come through.
Now, and your experiences have, a lot of the folks who watch the show identify as Christo-pagans. They're people who, like you said earlier, started out in a a Christian setting or a Catholic setting, and despite their fears about what was going on inside them, they just started to feel drawn to these other dimensions of relationship. And I know that among those things that your gifts allowed you to connect with was being able to connect with the Divine Mother, Mary, the mother of Rabbi Jesus, and so in your work, understanding that from years ago, would it be fair to say that that your gifts aren't just used to get messages across? They're not just used to help people to reattune or elevate their vibrational levels, their frequency, but maybe also to affect real healing, because we know that healing can't happen unless we elevate those frequencies, and that sounds to me exactly like what they're working with you to do.
I think you're absolutely right. I think that is the truth. We have to elevate ourselves in order to be healers. And I mean, one of the greatest healers, well, the greatest healer of all time was Jesus. We just took him and put him into something that he had no intentions of being, but he was the greatest healer of all time, and he is definitely from a totally different dimension. I had a couple of experiences with Jesus that were quite interesting. One of them in particular, during a meditation, he appeared to me different than what we see the paintings to look like, and said, "Come with me." So we took a walk and we sat down, and it was very interesting because he sat across from me face to face. He crossed his legs over each other, and he put out his hands, and he said, "Put out your hands." So I put out my hands, and he put his hands on top of my hands, palm to palm, and he said, "This is how I connected, not how I prayed." It was a totally different experience for me, because I'm saying to myself, what are you saying to me? But he was trying to tell me, it was all about his connection with whatever source you want to label it as, versus the word prayer. And I don't discount prayer because it has its own power. But he was just trying to let me know that all of it is about connection, to whatever source you want to connect to, because that was the mission. Was connect to the source of any creator you want to call it, and the power's there. The power's all there.
Absolutely. And Robert just commented, and I wanted to share with everybody watching or listening to the podcast. He says, light beings are benevolent. They will help us to heal, but their greatest hope is to expand our consciousness. And that really brings me to sort of the next question that I had, that I wanted to wrap up. We try to keep these programs to 30 minutes. We always go over. So as long as you're okay being here a couple minutes extra. The big question, because we are a queer pagan spirituality and culture program, is I'd like to get some of your sense of that intersectionality of walking between the experience of being a gay man and the experience of being a mystic, the experience of being a gay man and being psychic, and most importantly, because both of us are old enough to have been through the pandemic from its early days, the experience of being a gay man and the experience of being a healer. Because my experience has been that that we might not step up or step into our role as healers until later on. But that doesn't mean that if we look back now, that we don't see periods of time when we were actually being used or trained or formed, or however you want to call it, as healers from the very beginning of the pandemic. So where do you see that intersectionality? Where do you see, if at all, that crossover, and like, how does being a gay man inform your ability to bring those gifts to the people?
I think it was when I finally reached my 30s and came to a realization that being gay is not who I am. Being spiritual or a psychic medium or a person of great faith, that's who I am, you know. And yeah, I thought back then that being gay would stop me from doing my work because I would be judged, but I judged myself for that anyway. So, you know, once I released myself from that and realized, you know, that's not who you are. You know, it's got nothing to do with who you are as a person. That's just a choice that that's your lifestyle. But my mission was to get out there, pass along a message of hope and of love, and that all of it is okay. And no matter what you are, no matter who you are, all of it is okay. You know, there's no right way, there's no wrong way. It's just okay. Because I remember reading a story about a gentleman who had crossed over. He had an NDE, and he was of a very Orthodox Jewish background. And his one main phrase that stuck with me, his comment was when he came back, "Wow, there's no religion here." So that's my take on it.
I think too that as somebody who's had the privilege of knowing you guys for 34 years, during which period I want every viewer to understand that neither of us, none of the three of us, have aged a day. You certainly haven't. This is just absolutely insane. Every time I see you, you freaking look the same age. I get grayer and grayer. Robert just said to be a gay man is a superior gift. And I think that while I don't know if that's true about all of us, having seen the things that the two of you have done from the earliest stages, not only of being there for people, myself included, who were living with this disease, but you know, being there for people as they cross over, helping them cross over, being there for their loved ones when they survive. I think even your work as a hairdresser on a daily basis, I got shivers listening to you talk about when Jesus said, "That's not how I pray, that's how I connect." Because isn't that what we did for our whole careers as hairdressers? Is the first thing we do is our hands are on that person's shoulders, and we're making that connection, conscious or not. Energy is being exchanged, compassion is being exchanged. Sometimes an invitation for them to get the hell out and don't come back. It's still an energy exchange, and it's still for the greater good. So I want to thank you for being our guest on tonight. And you know, just if you wouldn't mind, just real quickly, I know we've kept you a long time. Tell folks where you go from here. What is your next step, and your Facebook page, which, like I said, Robert, if you don't mind, go ahead and put that in the comments so that we can, if you just copy his Facebook page link, I'll go ahead and put it in this on the screen right here. But what are you doing next? Where does this take you? I know you guys had or have the Center for Inner Wisdom. But what are you doing now?
Oh, we're working hard there. I'm still doing hairdressing, and I'm at the center with Robert on Mondays, doing our healing work. And I try to get there as much as possible. We have a lot of classes and education, and great people that do a lot of things to help people there. Awesome. You know, our passion is a place for healing. That's what our sign says. Center for Inner Wisdom, a place for healing, physical, emotional, spiritual, mental, whatever it is. That's what we offer people.
Beautiful.
And we're a nonprofit, and we don't charge for our services for the healing work, you know, but we do run on donations. But people are generous, and it's still going strong 4 years later.
Well, There's one other thing I'd like you to do while I jump on the Facebook page to grab that URL. If you wouldn't mind, tell everybody where you're located, what your what your contact information is, and I'm going to go ahead and grab that URL real quick.
All right, we are Center for Inner Wisdom, 4849 North Dixie Highway in Oakland Park Boulevard. We're at Bay 2, which is to the rear of the building. I'll give you my phone number, which is 954-245-8418, or Robert's number, which is 954-696-6389. If you would like to contact us and get some more information, we'd be more than happy to talk to you.
And you can find him on Facebook at facebook.com/Paul-Anthony-Psychic Medium-Mystic, followed by a dash and all of those numbers on the screen. Let's see, 11631-28687-179-294. I have to do that because this is going to podcasts, and I always forget that people aren't going to see the screen.
Okay.
So we'll do that one more time, and I should have worn my other glasses. Facebook.com/Paul-Anthony-Psychic Medium-1163-128-687-179-294. And I'll tell you guys a little secret. If you go to that page tonight, or whenever you watch this, and you click like on the page, once they get to a certain number of likes, Facebook will give Paul the opportunity to go in there and just change that web address to something shorter. So do him a favor, and do all of the people that they're going to be able to help a favor by going in there tonight and sharing that with your friends. Paul, I want to thank you and Robert for all of the work that you guys do. I want to thank you for being on the show tonight.
Are you kidding?
And I can't wait to see you guys personally. I've got 2 private messages here from folks that are asking that, because I forgot last week, and I honestly did forget again this week. Yes, I promised last week I would let you guys know. Yes, you can get all 3 of the books finally are back in stock at Amazon. Mental Mastery, The Magic of Forgiveness, and The Magic at the Crossroads. Italian Folk Magic, excuse me, Italian Folk Magic and the Old Religion. Just guys, send me a message. The reason I didn't mention it on the show is because we're now listed on Amazon. We're listed on Goodreads. We're listed on Lulu. We're listed on somewhere else. Oh, Barnes and Noble. But you can actually look on Amazon's the easiest way. I've got an author profile there, and they will connect you to how to download it, how to get it on Kindle, how to get the hard copy books. And for that guest that just sent me the private message, I really love that you want an autographed copy. I would love to do that, but in order to send to England, they want $35, and it just doesn't. My book might be good, but it's not worth spending $35 for postage. Just get it from Amazon, and let's just affirm the next time I see you, I'll go ahead and sign it for you, because I promise you my signature isn't worth all that extra money. So guys, those of you who are watching, I want to thank you for being here. Paulie, we're so grateful to have you here. And as we say at the end of every one of our broadcasts, I just want to remind you guys that as we talk about elevating our energy, as we talk about bringing our frequency up so that we can heal the world at a time when divisiveness and strife and injustice and hijacking of our way of life seems to be happening at every turn, just remember that even though that feels crazy and chaotic, that's what it is. It's just chaos. And out of the chaos can come transformation. And we do that by coming back to the present moment, by recognizing that the point of power is always right here. What happens in the past is always interpreted through a chaotic lens that may not be accurate, and it's done. And what might happen in the future? Well, none of us know. So that's just a projection. But where the energy is, the power, where the opportunity for you to elevate your frequency and to become part of the solution, that's in the present moment. And if you'll just bring love, if you'll just bring gratitude for everything that you've got right now, no matter how scary it feels, if you're grateful for what you have now, because if you're not grateful for what you have now, there's no point in having more, is there? But if you're grateful for what you have right now, and you bring love to that moment, compassion to that moment, as Marianne Williamson said on last night's Stephen Colbert show, she said that wellness is not the absence of disease. Disease is the absence of wellness. And so too, love is not the absence of hate. Hate is the absence of love. So wherever there's fear in your life, if you bring love back to that moment, the fear is gone. So do that. Stay in the moment. Be grateful for what you've got. And always remember the best is yet to come. We'll talk to you soon. Namaste.